How does a city go from the world's first industrial giant to a forgotten ruin and then rise again as a global powerhouse? This isn't just any city's story. This is the story of Manchester, a 200-year saga of transformation from 1825 to today. Let's rewind to the 1820s. Manchester wasn't just a town. It was an idea taking shape. They called it Cottonopolis, the capital of cotton. Imagine hundreds of mills, their chimneys piercing the sky, running day and night. Raw cotton, picked by slaves in America, journeyed across the Atlantic, arriving through Liverpool. It was the canals and, crucially, the world's first modern intercity railway. The Liverpool and Manchester line opened in 1830 that acted as the city's arteries, pumping this raw material in and finished goods out to the world. The city's population didn't just grow, it exploded. People flocked from all over Britain and Ireland, seeking work. But this rapid growth came at a cost. Workers were crammed into cramped, unsanitary housing, with entire families living in a single room. Yet, amidst the grime, a revolution was happening. By the 1840s, Manchester was producing nearly half of the world's cotton cloth. It wasn't just a city. It was the Silicon Valley of the 19th century, a hub of innovation, engineering, and raw, relentless ambition. The mid-19th century was a time of stark contrasts. On one hand, immense fortunes were being made, grand villas were built in the leafy suburbs for the new cotton lords. But this wealth was built on the back of immense suffering. Walk through the working class districts, and you'd find a different reality. Children as young as 7 worked grueling hours in the dangerous mills. The slums were a breeding ground for disease, with devastating cholera outbreaks claiming thousands of lives. It was in these streets that a young German intellectual, Friedrich Engels, witnessed this poverty firsthand. His observations led him to write The Condition of the Working Class in England, a book that would change the world. Yet, at the very same time, a civic conscience was emerging. The magnificent town hall, a testament to Victorian ambition, began to rise. The first free public libraries were established, alongside museums and universities, opening up knowledge to the people. Manchester became the beating heart of the workers' rights movement, the cradle of trade unions and the fight for a fairer society. By the late Victorian era, from the 1870s to the turn of the century, Manchester had reached its zenith. It was undeniably one of the wealthiest and most powerful cities on the planet. The future arrived here first. Electric lighting began to illuminate its grand streets. The Manchester Ship Canal, an audacious feat of engineering completed in 1894, allowed massive ocean-going ships to sail 36 miles inland, directly to the heart of the city, bypassing Liverpool entirely. Manchester had built its own port. The city's skyline became a forest of grand warehouses, ornate banks, and imposing office buildings. This wasn't just a manufacturing town anymore. It was a global trading empire, with goods from every corner of the globe flowing through its exchanges. The city's confidence was palpable, etched in the red brick and terracotta of its architecture. The dawn of the 20th century saw this industrial might pivot towards a new challenge. World War I Manchester's factories, once churning out cotton, now produced weapons, ammunition, and uniforms for the front lines. With the men away fighting, women stepped into the factories and workplaces, taking on new roles and responsibilities. A shift that would irrevocably change society. The war also empowered the working class, leading to greater political representation. The world, and Manchester with it, would never be the same. But after the roar of the war years came a slow, creeping silence. The 1920s and 30 seconds marked the beginning of a long, painful decline. The global economy had changed. Manchester's dominance was challenged by cheaper cotton production from places like India and Japan. One by one, the mills that had been the city's lifeblood began to fall silent. For sale signs appeared on factory gates. And unemployment, a specter the city hadn't faced on this scale before, began to rise. Manchester was still a major city, but the crown had slipped. The engine of the world was starting to sputter. Just as it grappled with economic decline, the city was plunged into the horrors of World War II. As a vital industrial center, Manchester became a prime target for the German Luftwaffe. The Blitz rained down destruction. Thousands of homes were destroyed, landmarks were reduced to rubble, and the industrial heartlands of Trafford Park were relentlessly bombed. Yet through the fire and the fear, the spirit of Manchester endured. The city kept working, kept producing, and immediately began the arduous task of rebuilding amidst the ruins. If the pre-war years were a slow decline, the 1950s and 60s were a catastrophic collapse. The final death knell sounded for the cotton industry. What was once the city's greatest strength had vanished almost completely. The great mills and factories closed for good. With no jobs, people began to leave in droves, seeking futures elsewhere. Entire districts fell into dereliction. The vibrant streets of Cottonopolis became ghost towns of empty warehouses and crumbling terraces. Manchester became a byword for post-industrial decay, a poor city haunted by the ghosts of its glorious past. Through the 70s and 80s, the city hit rock bottom economically, but something incredible happened. In the midst of the decay, a new energy exploded. A cultural revolution was born. This was the era of legendary music that would define a generation. Bands like Joy Division, The Smiths, and later the Stone Roses create a day. Soundtrack for the time's melancholic, defiant, and uniquely Mancunian. Independent record labels like Factory Records didn't just release music. They created a whole new cultural identity. The city might have been broke, but it was brimming with creativity, attitude, and a fierce artistic soul. Then came the 1990s and the moment that changed everything. In June 1996, a massive Ira bomb ripped through the city center, destroying a huge part of the main shopping area. It was the largest peacetime bomb ever detonated in Great Britain. For any other city, this could have been the final blow. But for Manchester, it was a catalyst. Instead of collapsing, the city saw an opportunity. With a spirit of defiance, Manchester didn't just repair the damage. It completely reimagined its future. The rebuild was bold, modern, and forward-thinking. The old, tired Darndale Center was transformed. New public spaces like Exchange Square and entertainment complexes like the Printworks emerged from the rubble. This wave of regeneration was supercharged when Manchester successfully bid for and hosted the 2002 Commonwealth Games. The event showcased a new, confident, and modern city to the world. This wasn't a revival. It was a complete rebirth. The new millennium saw Manchester cement its new identity. The city rapidly transformed into the UK's second largest business hub. The derelict's Alford Docks were reborn as Media Cityuk, becoming the new northern home for the BBC, ITV, and a host of creative and digital businesses. The Metrolink tram system expanded, stitching the city's districts together. The skyline, once dominated by mill chimneys, began to fill with gleaming glassed towers, luxury apartments, and stylish offices started appearing in the very same mills that had once housed looms and spinning mules. The economy shifted decisively from industry to finance, media, and technology. This momentum accelerated through the 2010s. Manchester became a truly global city, attracting billions in foreign investment. Its world-class universities drew students from over 150 countries, creating a vibrant, multicultural atmosphere. Tech companies flocked to the city, creating a thriving digital ecosystem known as Silicon Malleable. A property boom saw cranes become a permanent feature of the skyline as the city grew upwards and outwards at a staggering pace. Then, in 2020, the world stopped. The COVID-19 pandemic brought an eerie silence to the bustling city. The shops closed, the offices emptied, and the constant flow of people and trade ceased. But just as it had done throughout its history, Manchester adapted. The city embraced remote work, digital business, and online commerce. It weathered the storm, proving its resilience once again. And that brings us to today, a city in its 200th year of constant change. Manchester is now the UK's fastest growing city outside of London. It's a powerhouse of finance, media, technology, and science. Those old cotton mills, the symbols of its first life, have been given a third. They are now sought after apartments, creative office spaces, independent cafes, and even film studios.